And it's sort of, kind of normalized somewhat now at this point. But obviously Texags threw a big grenade into everything with their announcement. But what have been your thoughts on what you've seen for these early days of name, image, likeness?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm glad you mentioned that because last week I spent the week talking with Big 12 players about their approach to it and just sort of what they've learned so far this month, because obviously they've spent a year or so getting educated on this, but it's a different deal once the marketplace actually opens up on July 1 and, what's actually out there. How do you make a deal? What's fair? What's your value and all that? And I was very impressed talking with these players. I think as much as fans kind of like to browbeat them about, you got to pay taxes and what kind of issues does it create in the locker room and all this kind of stuff. Like, these kids don't know their stuff. They're really sharp. And I was impressed talking to Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson and some of these guys that have really large followings and have a real chance to profit and benefit off this, that they are, being very careful about how they approach this with their deals and, trying to find smart ways like Cameo to make easy money while still, helping and connecting with the fan base and stuff. So I think that stuff's all great. The Texags deal of paying $10,000 for an exclusive interview, I think is quite frankly a lot more alarming, because I think that is a more direct way of setting up a system where, you're paying players to come to your school. And so I have no doubt that throughout the country, and that's not a knock on Texags. I think the creativity is, I get it. There are going to be a lot of people that are trying to figure out what's the line here, what's ethical and unethical and all that. And there's going to be a lot more examples of this. But I have no doubt that throughout the country, there are coaching staffs and compliance offices meeting today saying, okay, well, are we supposed to do this too? How are we supposed to set this up? Is this what everybody's going to start doing? I think there's going to be a real fear that things like that could become the norm.
Yeah, it only took 2 weeks too.
Yeah, all of 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think
for sure.
And I've seen discussion on our board, and it's really healthy, about the integrity of it, the journalism part of it. And I understand we're in a new world, and so the old man get off my lawn. We're like, hey, you can't do that, but no, yeah, you can. I just don't know where this could be even more of a wildfire.
So very clearly, this is a situation where the school cannot be the middleman between sponsors or businesses and players. Okay, so this is a situation where you've got a media company saying, well, look, we know how to do this. We know how to be the middleman between sponsors here. And certainly we cover players and stuff. And, Texags has always sort of existed in, kind of by their own standards. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I respect those guys and, Billy and all them. I have always had a pretty solid relationship with those guys. And I respect what they do, but certainly this is an example. Now, I don't know, is the future of this that you are handing out 500 to 1,000 for a lot of players, or is it a rare thing to make a payout like this for an interview? I don't know. I'm curious to see what the actual future of this stuff is, but I think it has to be concerning to anybody, because even if a coaching staff isn't setting that up, they're still going to tell players and recruits, you need to come here because we can make sure you get deals like that.
Yeah, my concern about it too is also just on the, when do players start saying, well, I only do interviews outside of what the school sets up when I'm paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like they're Monica Lewinsky after the scandal making bids, between which networks if Barbara Walters is going to get it or Katie Couric. I mean, that's not what these guys are. I mean, it's mostly pretty
right.
run of the mill stuff.
Well, and okay, so what is an appearance on your radio show worth, right? For an exclusive interview. It's probably worth less than $10,000, I would guess. But it's like you're so far I've received zero, so we're somewhere between $0 and $10,000. But no, I'm just messing with y'all.
No.
But seriously, this is where it's like, okay, what is fair and what is across the line is a really hard debate, and that's something that I think a lot of people are going to be sort of testing that and testing. Does the public react to that really negatively, or is there sort of like an acceptance over time with this?
Yeah, the exclusivity part is the only thing to me that caught my attention. It wasn't even the $10,000. It was the exclusivity part. For example, when Robert Griffin III was here, or whoever, I would almost feel as a radio or TV or what we do, podcast, I would almost feel bad. I know it's business to sit there and go, we only get you, but if you're going to pay that kind of money, that's kind of what you expect. And what about David Kay now? It doesn't, if you're David Kay and they reach an agreement, he's the athletic communications for Baylor Communications, the AD, wait a minute. It kind of takes it out of his hand, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I've had that conversation with media relations folks because I want them to understand, and I'm sure you guys too, that hey, look, I know that there is some confusion out here, or at least I've seen kids on their open door profiles or whatever say they're available for interviews or podcasts or whatever, right? And I just try to make clear to these guys, I hope you can communicate to your players that look, we're not going to pay for interviews. A lot of people I would hope are not going to pay for interviews. I hope kids don't get an expectation that this is. I understand if they want to make the ask, and maybe some people are going to say yes to this, but yeah, you're right. I can see this is a uncomfortable time for SIDs, no question. And I'll throw it back to you guys. How do you So obviously, RG3 went pro after his Heisman year, right? But if a guy like that comes back for his next year, like Johnny did, yeah, isn't that going to he's going to have all sorts of great opportunities for autograph signings and merch and all that kind of stuff after you win a Heisman? But yeah, where's the media part of that kind of play into it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how that works. There's a lot of different angles to it, but if you can do it, do it. If you have the ability, you have that third party, and you can get away with it, then I guess you do. So, anything else, Paul?
Yeah, Max, I was just curious what your thoughts on Steve Sarkisian were, especially comparing him early on to Tom Herman. Obviously, Sark hasn't lost a game yet. He hasn't done anything in Austin where fans will get unnecessarily up in an uproar about something. He hasn't decided to punt when he should go for it or whatever. But it is different. It's kind of interesting to me to see how a guy like Sark, who is very, California cool, was described, just relaxed and laid back, compared to Tom Herman, who I honestly started to worry about. I thought he was going to have an aneurysm at media days a couple years ago, just because he's so high strung. How two people in the same job can be different.
Yeah, I think part of that is just that this is not his first rodeo. This is not his first head coaching job. So I think he knows that overall, the strategy for this offseason is let's just play it safe. Let's not say anything crazy. Let's not set any wild expectations for year one or year two or anything like that. Kind of stick to the Texas talking points. I think he's been a breath of fresh air for their players and stuff. And I think he's been pretty personable and likable and stuff. And so I think he's doing well. And sort of staying focused on the main thing of getting them right, and not so much on, being, doing all these interviews and saying wild stuff and sort of getting his name and fame out there. I think that helps when you have that experience of doing it before, that you go to something like media days, you're pretty comfortable, and this is just another step in it. But I think he seems pretty calm and cool so far. You're right, in terms of how he's approached the job.
It's not fair when the University of Texas, especially coming off of Tom Herman, has somebody who's their head coach is likable. It just you can't do that. I mean, it's hard, right? It's like Craig has said, it's hard. He's likable because Herman was not in any way, shape, or form. Max, thanks for your time. Appreciate it, buddy. Good luck going forward. That's Max Olson.
Appreciate you guys. I'm going to have to start charging more next time. I hope you understand. New era.
10K, baby.
10K. Max Olson, theathletic.com, was with us from day one on SicEm365 Radio. We haven't gotten into that A&M thing, but, I had it printed out, the story. I shared it with you guys, and a lot of the reaction was, whoa. The only concern I have is Isaiah Spiller may have an amazing year. How does that exclusivity agreement, if that's what it is, affect what the longtime media relations director with Texas A&M, who's a great dude, Alan Cannon. Is that right? How does that affect what he does this week at Big 12 Media, SEC Media Days? Is he available? Is he available during the media session?
Okay, what happens when he goes for 225 against somebody and 3 touchdowns, and after the game, they want to bring him to the press conference? He says, well, no, does that...
And I don't know if that
exclusive for one-on-ones or?
Yeah, and I probably should have done a little more homework before the show started, but I just should have. I didn't. But that was probably the part that I thought, like I'm sure at some point, I know that we will, as a website, look at opportunities with student athletes. Why wouldn't we?
What are the details you're not sure about?
About whether or not that affects him being available as a Spiller or Richardson to other media opportunities.
No, because the whole point of it is to have the exclusive before Media Days interview. That's what this is, beating the media at SEC Media Days to the punch.
So it's just this one interview.
And I think stuff throughout the season.
Yeah.
Based on I haven't read TexAgs. I'm sure they've got all the details there, but the way I understood it was this was mostly about exclusivity before Media Days so that they get this, grand one-on-one where everybody else is doing group stuff. And I would imagine that's going to, include some other. It's backed by a local real estate group. So, I haven't seen a ton of other details, but I know that's what it was about, was the exclusive pre-media days interviews.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it meant, like, for example, when they have media sessions prior to a game against Alabama or whoever else, or post-game interviews and all that. That could be interesting without jumping overboard. Oh my God, you can't do that. Well, maybe you can. I don't know. That'll be.
That shit. But what in their heads went? Let's go $10,000 a piece. Like, Jesus. Like, I get that TexAgs is loaded for bear with money. Like, they've got millions to play around with. But that's a lofty price tag. And, I guess if you're one of those who is going to be right in the mix of things, like A&M has been preparing they're getting ready to get as sleazy as they possibly need to win a national championship. Let's just be honest about it. And a lot of other schools are too. And so they're licking their chops over this. But I'm just looking at it going, like, I get that you don't really care about everybody else because you're unaffected by everybody else. But, like, you just set this really large bar that just kind of screwed everybody in the entire industry.
Who are they bidding against?
Nobody.
That's the other thing. It's
Brent Swerneman at the local paper. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's competing with them. They could have paid $1,000 and would have got these exclusive interviews.
I don't know if they're the ones paying. I think
the real estate group.
It's the real estate company.
Yeah, the real estate. But okay, so now they've got $20,000 from a sponsor that goes right into
for two exclusive interviews.
To me,
$20K. This isn't even an in-season interview.
I don't think that's just for media.
This isn't even in, like, practices haven't even started yet, and they're getting $10K a piece.
I'll use the metaphor I used to somebody last week describing our change in job. And, like, we had a meter that was 100% BS all day long, and we've gone down to about 0. And I don't think the powers that be in anything known we would have probably done it for 50. But who are they bidding against? Who are you bidding against if you're A&W 10,000? They would have probably done it for 5. For 2,500.
Well, does that also mean there was somebody who was representing Spiller and Richardson?
So. I would hope so.
And so that's
or they're just that good.
That's the kind of thing that keeps up someone like Chad Jackson at night, whatever, And I actually had somebody. I forgot now who it was. I believe it was a business that contacted asking me, "Hey, I would like to." Well, you contact Chad Jackson or the athletes or however you do that with and let them figure it out. But that was interesting. When I saw that pop, I was like, what? And I thought selfishly about it. I said, wait a minute, what if that happened here? I'd be pissed if maybe that might happen, that we have like if RG3 was here and somebody had exclusivity to him only. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, I'm not against the idea at all, really. I think it's probably a smart business move on TexAg's behalf and all of that.
Great PR.
I don't think it's like, they're anti-journalism or anything along those lines. I just look at that price tag and I go, Jesus. So if Haynes King becomes a giant superstar, you're going to have to pay him $20K? And then if the next Adrian Peterson comes along, you'll pay him $30K. Like, where does what I'm saying? Yeah, why did you start? I just think that's such a large bar for an exclusive pre-media day interview. But I'm sure there's more to it. But that's all that's really been said about it. So good on them for being at the head of the line as far as this goes. But now they've kind of, whether intentionally or not, sort of set the bar that everybody is now going to play under. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah. Things have changed. I mean, the way things are, it's changed. Normally what would happen is if we wanted to do an interview, like with Joey McGuire, you contact David Kay, would have been Taylor Bryan. He's now at North Texas. But, hey, can we get so-and-so? Yes. What date? Or no?
I mean, look, we would benefit far before any other media outlet in Waco. I'll tell you that much right now, because the local TV stations aren't paying anything for any of that. I know that dang sure the radio stations aren't. So, I mean, we might be the beneficiaries of this in some ways, somehow. But, I'm not saying we're going to pay $10K for, pre-media day interviews, but this could be a good thing for us in the long run, but it still makes me a little just uneasy.
What about weekly segments? Not so much exclusivity, but paying someone to come in the studio once a week. For example, let's say it's whoever wins
Terrell
the quarterback.
Bernard.
Yeah.
That'd be worth $10,000 over a season.
To me, that's worth it.
Yes.
For pre-media days interviews, I think you're maybe.
But see, I still don't know if that's just for this week in Hoover or if it's for the rest of the year and the season that those two are exclusively allowed to be a part of only TechSec, because then you get the sports information department into it. And I don't think you want.
I think exclusive is, you exclusively, that term's dead anyways. The media killed the term exclusive. Somehow or another, you can copy and paste and cite exclusive these days, which people do all the time. That word is dead. The word breaking has been battered into the ground by people on social media. So that's all that. But it's going to be very interesting, and I think Treston Ebner, that opportunity, or Terrell Bernard or someone like that, I think that's great. But the exclusive thing, I think, is just they get to talk to him with no one else. It's not they're the only ones that get to talk to him. It's that they get to talk to him for this amount of time, and no one else can ask anything. So that's the exclusive part. Not like we're the only ones that can talk to Isaiah Spiller. That would be ridiculous on A&M's part. That would be the dumbest thing ever to say, oh, no, only Texags can talk to him. No, there's no way they would let that fly.
All right, when we come back, 4:25, a little after 5 o'clock today, Shane Anderson, Midway football coach, among, as Joey McGuire said, 13 or 14,000 are in San Antonio for Texas High School Coaches Association, the convention. He'll join us a little bit after that. But there's a couple other things to get to, including NCAA EA Sports, the game, the cover, and now players. Remember, that's kind of how a lot of this started. And Reggie Bush was on the cover back in 2007. What does this mean? And much more. This is SicEm365 Radio.